it would take the whole of men. You know what I'm saying? It would take like the whole of men to like get on the case and like solve the case. Like, you know what I mean? Like it would be a ridiculous amount of resources they would need to fight this stuff. So
Let me ask you a question, Public.
Yeah.
So since you said earlier that people can be controlled, right?
Yes.
And you're speaking about the whole misogyny, I'm sorry, we living in a great society. Why aren't the people that's in the higher power controlling the people and causing them to stop raping?
Because they don't care about rape.
So why are we fighting a war that we can't beat, or we feel like we can't beat?
Let's just let misogyny win.
Yeah, I was like, I'm definitely not down for just laying down.
So, but I'm saying, what position what position are we playing to fight off these attacks?
Fight. But like, learn that shit. You don't be a threat.
This discussion is a good thing.
The easiest thing we can do as men is for us not to be predators. If every man just took it upon, fuck stopping somebody from doing, don't even worry about that. You yourself don't be, just worry about yourself. This is one of the only times I'm gonna tell y'all be selfish. Men, don't worry about nobody else. Focus on yourself. Eat your own dinner. Keep your eyes on the road. You yourself stop being a predator. You stop being a predator. You stop being a predator. You stop being abusive. You unpack your own shit. Before you go, put on your foot. What did they tell you to do when you're on a flight? Put on your mask first. Like, put your mask on first, and then go help everybody else. Like, stop looking around and worrying about everybody else. Nah. Put your fucking mask on because you about to pass out. You put your shit on first, and then after you know what I'm saying? Now you can go help other people. But most men ain't even put their mask on. And we still out here gasping for air. We ain't got a way to go. I got to read this one. It's a good one. Hold on. Okay. Nana Paper Plan said, if hijabs are so much protection, why is grape out of control in the Middle East? I wish Ali was up here to answer that. What up, BBG?
Hey, y'all. It was a point that was made earlier that kind of made me laugh a little bit, where they talked about religion and how it was a form of protection for women, because modesty was, inserted, and that meant that women could be a little bit safer because, they would be dressed in a way where they wouldn't provoke men. The way that is so unbelievably opposite, and I don't even mean a little bit, I mean a lot of it. It's so opposite because the onset of modesty, especially within religious practices, came from men who literally couldn't control themselves, to the point where they were performing these religious practices and they were getting distracted by women who had veils on. Like that's why in a lot of religious texts, you'll hear people talk about how women weren't allowed into like temples, or the men would have to speak on behalf of the entire community, specifically to God, because when women would even enter the temple, like they didn't have to be uncovered at all. If they were completely covered from head to toe with veils on, the men still couldn't figure out how to control themselves. So it just kept going further and further and further, and it never actually resolved the issue, because the only thing that started happening was that the women would get punished for being in the space. They would get punished for talking too much. They would get punished for, trying to pray on their own behalf. They would be considered the link between women and specifically Satan, because there was a book that I read that talked about how when women would wear jewelry, or if they would put we call it eyeliner now, but if they would put dark powder around their eyes, that they were trying to entice men. Like that was the reason why, they were close to Satan, because they had this sort of pious attitude and they wanted to, adorn themselves with gold jewelry so that they could entice men. And the reason why they did that is because they had slept with fallen angels. Like that was the excuse. And it's absolutely, like, it's insane now to think about. But in reality, like we just heard in real time, men who think that makes sense. Like that is perfectly Bible excuse that, hey, women need to be modest because it'll protect them and it'll keep them safer. It never has. through like literally for thousands of years. It never at no point has kept any woman safer being covered from head to toe.
BPG.
Because
Let me ask you a question.
Hold on, Ambassador. Hold on. Let me read the super chat. Sean said, what about Me Too movement for women that were sexually assaulted in Mecca? I didn't hear about that. Let E go real quick, Ambassador. She just got up here, but I want E to get her chance. Go ahead, E.
Hey y'all, it's just I wanted to give an example. Well, one, I wanted to just say it's frustrating, sad, and maddening that the onus and responsibility continues to be put on women to be modest so men won't look at you, to be meek and mild and quiet so men don't look at you. And that starts when we're little girls, right? There are things we can't, quote unquote, culturally do or wear as little girls. Many of us can resonate with this, and it was because of the behaviors of men.
Yep.
But I wanted to give this example.
We'll put on something less revealing your uncle coming over type shit.
Exactly, right? And so women know this to be true because it started when we were young. I wanted to just give a quick example of, since, you know, folks were bringing religion into it and how misogyny is deeply rooted in religion, no matter which one you really kind of want to talk about. But specifically, I have an aunt who is Muslim, and I saw her not too long ago, and I've always noticed she wears full hijab all the time, but there are moments where she will take off her hijab when we're in the home. My dad, who is her brother, she won't have it around him, and of course, like her sons, my cousins, or whatever. But I asked her a couple weeks ago, but why did she remove it around some men and not others? And what she said to me was that because in her religion, her hair must be fully covered around men where there's an opportunity for like a romantic connection, which could be as close as your first cousin. And so she doesn't have her hijab off around other male family members because of that reason. And if that isn't another example enough as to why this is deeply rooted in misogyny and control and has nothing to do with morals or anything like that. It's just men are predators and have been, and women have been the victims of that. Yet we have to carry the responsibility of that, and that's something wrong with that.
See, that's my problem right there. We're talking about millions and millions of men in the world, and we're trying to have one guy try to control a massive amount of men because these men don't know how to control themselves. And at some point, it's like, okay, if I was some type of leader, some type of government official, whatever the case may be, during that time, because back in the day, we were like savages. We was a savage society, and we didn't know how to really conduct ourselves as human beings. And so, trying to manage a whole group of men and say, hey, you need to stop doing this. You need to be more self-control. That's easier said than done. So the only thing that I feel like that needed to happen was to try to mitigate it as much as possible by saying, okay, women, look, we can't control these men. We can tell them all that, hey, you need to control yourself. They're just gonna keep doing what they're doing. So let's try to protect our women. Let's say, hey, women, let's look. Y'all go ahead and wear less revealing. Less revealing clothing, so that way we can kind of mitigate them being so consumed in their own pleasures and whatever.
Be for real.
Oh yeah,
that
never worked. That never worked. I don't think you heard what I mentioned earlier. That never worked at no point. And I think and I'll explain where that frustration comes from, because I think that I've said this before. I think that men sometimes mean well when they say that, because y'all don't have that lived experience of consistently being objectified from childhood up. So it's very, very hard to envision a life where if you do all the things and you follow all the rules, that you'll still be subjected to the same exact thing as somebody who doesn't. And that's what women and girls go through on a consistent basis. As a girl who grew up in church, who had to wear the long denim skirts, who had to wear the t-shirts that were a little bit baggy and the little pumpkin seed shoes, who had to wear itchy tulle skirts that had on slips underneath, that had tights and socks and all of those things, as a girl who had to wear uniform, because when they introduced uniforms to school, the whole point was is that so other kids wouldn't bully each other and so that everybody would look the same so it wouldn't be an issue. Every single one of those circumstances still had me in a space where men, old men who were literally, you talking about starting at 21 up, from the time that I was, and a lot of women can attest to this, 6 years old, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, those men were stopping me on the street in a uniform. They were stopping us, and we had a guy at our church who they would tell the girls, "Don't you ever make sure you don't make sure you don't go in the kitchen where he is. Make sure you don't. If you go to the bathroom, take somebody with you." And this was in a small church. Men don't have the capacity, for whatever reason, to control other men. So they think that it's easier to tell women and girls to do this thing because it'll keep them safe. And just like Public said, if you start lining up women and girls, if you start them at the age they can talk and they can identify and say, all they got to be able to say is that's him. If you start lining them up from age 1, 2 to all the way up to 99 plus, I guarantee you it will cripple the system at how many of these women and girls have been assaulted in jean denim skirts and in bikinis and in plaid uniforms.
Let me ask you this then, BPG. Let's just say that is the case, and
No, it is.
what
That's
but
the
I'm saying,
case.
That's
no,
the
hold on,
case.
hold on. But let's just say
You
that.
stay giving excuses. You're like excusing away
No,
the responsibility and
hold on,
accountability. I don't
hold on,
understand.
E. Hold on 1 second, E. Hold on 1 second. BPG, um, if you was in a position of dictatorship, because that's how it was back in the day. If you was in a position of dictatorship, how would you have handled that situation? Of course, we have progressed over certain decades, whatever the case to be. But how would you handle that situation back in the day if these things was out of control? There were no laws in place. There was nothing in place for any type of protection for these women. How would you govern that? Like, what would be your solution?
Heavily persecute men who perpetuate these crimes against women, against children, against other men. The reason why we still have these things going on is because it is very similar consequences to then. If we want to talk about a barbaric society where men are able to run loose and do whatever it is they choose to do, we live in that. We live in that now. That the space that we're talking about historically, that it isn't far-fetched that men were able to create laws and policies that meant that they could tell women to dress less scantily clad so that they could protect themselves, but still go about terrorizing the community. That still exists, because if you look at places like Boston or Detroit or Chicago or New York or LA or Austin or Houston, you have a great backlog where women have come forward and they talked about their abusers. And when they do investigate these things, guess what? They find out that some of these men are serial rapists. So it's not a matter of whether or not we should continuously be policing women's bodies. We need harsher punishment for men who are committing these crimes, because apparently y'all ain't listening when we say it. So if you are a man who's coercive, guess what? You're going to jail. If you a man that's gonna drug the woman, you're going to jail. If you talk about you gave her a drink to loosen her up so y'all could go on a date, go to jail. That's fine. I think that would be a perfectly good solution.
I agree, and this is because I have 2 girls, and my whole thing that I'm trying to do is try to protect them as much as possible. And now I could easily go and attack a man for doing what he's doing. I mean, for messing with my daughter, whatever case be, if she's older. But there's multiple men that are like this, and it will be just me by myself trying to attack multiple men that are attacking our women.
Why would you go attack me? Why do you need to attack him? I don't understand.
I'm saying okay. I don't know what the stats are, but there's a higher percentage of men that I would say, I'm just gonna throw a number out there between 75 to 100. You know, I think it's about 75% of men that were unalived women, sexual abuse of women. I think it's very prevalent. I've never seen this prevalent in my entire life, all the way up until now. And so, and I feel like it's gonna keep increasing. Now, I do agree with you, BPG. It does need to be some type of repercussions as far as imprisonment. But just imagine you got 75% of men that are acting like this, trying to put all those men, as much as these prisons are flooded, trying to put all those men in prison. Where are the other men gonna be at? That's causing more
ask you a
crime.
question? I'm gonna ask you a quick question
at all.
because I watched this episode of Boondocks and it kind of cracked me up because I was watching it with my dad and my uncles, and the way that they reacted kind of told me a lot. You remember Boondocks when they had the Booty Warrior on there?
I don't watch that type of content. I watch a lot of old school stuff.
Okay, so to give some context, there was this episode of the Boondocks, this cartoon. It's like anime-ish kind of cartoon, but it talks about pop culture, where this guy who was in prison and he just enjoyed raping and assaulting men. He got out and he ended up on the Chris Hansen show, To Catch a Predator. And instead of them catching him trying to get with a child, he was trying to get Chris Hansen.
Trying to get Chris Hansen, yeah.
Yeah. And all of the men in the room with me, I ain't come for no kids. I came for man booty. Like, that's what he said. And I remember when he said that, like, all the men in the room was like, no, oh my God, no. And they didn't need, like, my dad didn't have any boys. My uncle didn't have any boys. They didn't need any sons. They didn't need any nephews to know, like, oh my God, that's a horrible, disgusting thing. Please don't do that to men. That's just absolutely awful. Because they could see and understand themselves being in that situation, in that predicament. So they saw the humanness in those other men and they just thought it was disgusting. I don't know what be happening in y'all brain where y'all got to have daughters to know that rape is terrible.
I know what be happening. The disconnect is most men, unfortunately, most men don't see women as human beings. So they, in men's minds, it is justified if a man takes that from a woman, it makes sense to a man. I mean, but what does she have on? That woman didn't need to go to Mike Tyson room at 3:00 in the morning. Like that's how that's where it comes from. That's exactly where it comes from. So that's the disconnect, right? But we all know that, like you just alluded to, men understand consent very well when you talk about man on man. Because you can't even look a man's way without a man, put him up.
I know men who can't watch that episode in real life. They can't watch it. They cannot, can't stomach it, can't sit through it. But I want y'all to consider that when you have daughters. Like, forget that that's my daughter, because that comes from that sense of ownership. Somebody stole my car. That's disgusting. Why would you do that? That's my car that belongs to me. Why would you do that? A lot of times, the reason why men can understand and conceptualize how wrong it is when it's happening to their daughters is not because they see women who are in distress or girls who are in distress. It's because they see something that belongs to them being violated and taken advantage of. How dare you touch my daughter or my mother or my sister? She belongs to me. Her capacity is for me, and you gonna make sure that she can't do what I need her to do because you done violated her? Oh, hell no. No.
That's not the case with me. Hold
on, Ambassador. Let me read this super chat. Sunrise E said, "Remove hands and wieners. Problems." Y'all sounding real. Y'all sounding. It's getting a little domestic in here. Y'all sounding like y'all want to run this shit like motherfucking Kim Jong-un type shit, man. What y'all talking about? Y'all what's going on? Calm that down a little bit. We not doing all of that. I know. They said Old Testament. Yeah, y'all want to get biblical. I thought y'all didn't like religion.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm trying to steer it away from it.
They said thigh for a wiener. That shit crazy. I don't want to do that. Nah, but on some real shit, doing it, I'm on some like not after the fact type shit. I'm on some let's meet the problem where it starts, and where it starts is men are taught that women are things to be had and that we could take it if we want to, as long as we can, right? We could take what we want. That's what men are taught. Like as long if we could take it, if they can't stop us, then they can't stop us. Like, oh, can your man fight? No, oh, then you single. Like that's how men think about women. Like, oh, you can't fight me off, so that's mine, right? Same way the booty warrior think in prison. I like you and I want you. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. If you can't fight me off, I'm taking it. That's what, like, that's how men, that's just how men think about these types of things. And then what makes it even more sick is that even the men who wouldn't do that stuff, like I wouldn't do that personally, but even the men who wouldn't do that stuff, they still run around justifying it. They still run around downplaying it. They still run around putting the onus on women, talking about, oh, it makes sense to tell women to wear hijabs. That is a direct, like, you're that now you are a part. Now you have shown up, right? Now you have shown up to the party, right? With drinks and everything. Like now you are a part of the shit. All you had to do, at the most, you could have just stayed out of it. But now you want to say, oh no, no. That makes sense, man. We do got to protect the women. So I get them telling them women to dress a certain way and to protect themselves, because that's just their protection. Yeah, nah.
So what's your solution? What's your solution? Do you got some girls? You got girls?
No, I don't have no. BBG just told you I don't need no daughters. I'm a human. I know I don't want to get raped.
Yeah,
How about we start there? I said universal. Okay. Like I don't need nobody to tell me a story about grape or nothing like that. I know what it is and I don't want it for me. So I'm gonna start and end with that one. I ain't got no daughter. I got sons. I'm definitely instilling in my sons, consent and all of that stuff. I actually wrote a book about consent. It's on my link tree. Y'all can go read it. But yeah, so consent is really important to me and my son, because I didn't even know about consent until I was older. I thought I knew it until I got older and was like, yo, hey, wait a minute. Shit, I didn't. I didn't know what it was. But the solution is to stop lying to men and tell men the truth and tell them that you need to treat women like human beings. You need to stop seeing women as figurines to collect and to, you know what I mean? And just because same way men do with children, just because children can't fight, men are programmed to abuse things that cannot defend themselves. We are programmed to take advantage of people who cannot defend themselves. Like that is what most men are programmed to do, unfortunately. So we deprogram men. We start with our children. We teach our sons, hey, you got to have integrity. Doing the right thing when nobody is looking. That's the best thing you can do. That's the best thing you could do. Do the right thing when nobody is looking. Yeah, I know you want to do it when you get quiet in the class, or and your teacher told everybody to get quiet and you get quiet so the teacher can see you or whatever. It's also just, what I mean? Like, it's also cool to, like, when you go out of class, to when they say be respectful in the hallways or going to the restroom. You know what I'm saying? You be quiet in the restroom. You be quiet on your way to the bathroom too when nobody is watching. Right? You just be mindful and be respectful. But it'd be simple shit like that. If you did it when they were kids, it wouldn't be such this like big undertaking when we're adults. Because now we're adults and it's like chipping away at a motherfucking mountain to get to a gym in the middle of the mountain at this point. You know what I mean? After 30, 40 years of being indoctrinated into misogyny. Right? Go ahead, E.
Well, I was just going to say, to your point, and I think it definitely goes farther, and I know you know this, but it goes farther than us telling and teaching our kids. It's like we have to be modeling the changes that are very necessary and long overdue. And many people don't model and actively parent in those ways. Some of it is ignorance, but also it's just responsibility and accountability. Mm-hmm. And Ambassador, I'm sorry, most of the things that you've been saying, and maybe I don't know if you're just not expressing it in a different way, but all that I hear are like avoiding the responsibility, and the fact that you have daughters is a scary thing because you keep bringing it up, but in the way of like seemingly that there is a care for it because you have daughters, like Public saying, right? He has sons, but he doesn't need daughters or a sister or a mom or any other blood related woman, because that's usually who you guys like somehow hold dear to or use in a way of an example. But it's like, it shouldn't fucking matter.
I think it's what BPG
Here's the
said.
thing,
It's
E.
just that property shit, like, or like, cause I've told the story before, but one of my ex-girlfriend's sister was, something happened to her, and somebody that I knew did it to her. And at the time, I was mad, I was hurt for her, but I felt very disrespected personally. I took it personally. Like, I was like, he knows that that's my girl's sister, and he would do that to my girl's sister. Like, oh, he must think I'm a punk. So I was looking for that fool in the daylight with a flashlight. Like, I was asking everybody. I was like, hey, have you seen this dude? Have you seen him? Oh, no, he ain't came to the park in like a couple months. I ain't seen him since June. I ain't seen him since. I'm like, all right, if you see him, man, give me a call, man. I've been looking for him. I miss it. I ain't telling nobody what's going on. I'm telling them, like, I'm just looking for him. That's the homie type shit. You know what I'm saying? So they don't get tipped off. But yeah, I never saw him again. But I took that as a slight to my manhood at the time. No doubt about it. And I was like, yo, if I find this motherfucker, like, it was over. Like, I was like, I was going to end up on the news type shit. Like, I felt so disrespected. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what a lot of men feel when it comes to protecting the women closest to them. Like, we just want to do it because it protects our ego, right? If a woman is walking next to you and somebody does something to them, yeah, that sucks that they did it to them. But it's also like, this motherfucker think I'm a pussy. Like, you just gonna run up to my girl and smack my girl in the butt when I'm standing here? All right. You know what I'm saying? But like, if your girl got smacked on the butt and you wasn't there, it's different. You're gonna be mad.
Okay, we're talking about a different type of man. And here's I understand what you're saying, E. I know you may be misinterpreting or misunderstanding what I'm saying. I get misunderstood all the time. But I love my babies. I wouldn't have been as good of a father if it wasn't for them.
Who told you you was a good father?
I did. And they reaffirm that each and every day.
All right.
And so when I talk to them on the phone, they're like my best friends. We talk about a lot of stuff. And my ultimate goal is to try to raise them to learn how to be good stewards in society. My job, of course, I did play that role in the beginning where I tried to control, but I quickly realized when they was around 4 years old with my oldest daughter that wasn't going to work. So I had to switch gears and learn parenting tactics. And so that's why they accept me a little bit more than they did before. So yes, my job is to protect my job is to protect my girls and my son, because and that's not even something that I would have.
Have you taught your son about consent? Did you teach your son about consent?
Yeah, what are y'all talking about with that consent thing? Consent to give to somebody. My son is young. If you talking about
how old
about
is
Smecks,
yeah, how old
he's
is
8 years old. He's 8
8
years old.
Perfect. This is when you got to start teaching them right now.
Well, I mean, I tell him don't let anybody touch you down there. Of course, I tell him that.
But what about?
But there's certain levels that I'm waiting to. There's things that I'm observing about him. Certain words that he will say to kind of lure me to say, okay, he's ready for this type of conversation, and then I'll bring that up.
But there are non-sexual ways to learn consent, because it goes way beyond that. And as a child is a great way to start, because just their day-to-day interactions with others is an introduction to that. And it'll set us up for when we become, we're growing into adulthood and moving into another category.
This is on some, like, not even on some plug shit, on some real shit. I wrote a book on consent. It's for kids. It's for kids. You can read it. You can read it to your son. I think it does a pretty decent job of explaining consent to kids in a very in a very like a gentle way that has nothing to do with Smecks whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's just how to consent to friendships and how people consent within a friendship or within a relationship that's not like just between two people. Right, it has a boy and a girl in it, but because that's important, right? I wanted that to be shown between the boy and the girl, but it ain't about like being her boyfriend or being his girlfriend. It ain't got nothing to do with that. But the link is in my link tree if you want to. It's real easy to order it off Amazon. She'll read it on some real shit. You can read it to him. 8 years old. My son is 8. That's perfect time. Yeah, I've been teaching my son. Not me, but like me and my wife have been teaching my son about consent since 2, 3. Like we've been like planting them seeds. Like definitely like my body, my choice, and then the other way around, right? Like for them, you know what I'm saying? Like we respect his boundaries. But that's that's physical, but also like just like if somebody doesn't want like unwanted attention, right? Like he may like a girl and he may be saying he likes her all the time, and she may be like, oh, okay, I don't like you. And then, okay, you just shut it down. Like, okay, that's cool, thanks. But a lot of boys just keep going and keep going and keep going. And, oh, I like you, I like you, I like you, I like, oh, I like you. Let me write you a letter. Let me buy you a teddy bear and da-da-da-da, you know what I mean? But she already said she don't like you, so.
You read a book on consent?
Yeah, I chose a book on consent, yeah.
Is it somewhere we can find?
Yeah,
or
it's in my link tree, yep. Yeah, you click on my link tree on my profile, it's in there.
Okay,
That's impressive, man. Very impressive.
Yeah, but let me read this super chat. Yasmin Francis said, if you are worried about your daughters, start by believing women and their lived experiences. I mean, that's what I'll be saying, man. A lot of this stuff just starts with us personally. It just starts with us personally. Like, it ain't like, yes, men, like just you and me individually, you know what I mean? Like, not like it ain't about you changing the world. It ain't about me talking to 10,000 men and convincing them to da-da-da-da. Just about you seeing the world differently. You know what I mean? You taking accountability for the things that you have done and do. You not inflating your, your value or your worth or anything like that, and really recognizing, the type of person you are. And not to like, like you tried your hardest and that's fine, but like recognize like whatever traumas you might be responsible for, whatever negative stereotypes you might be perpetuating, anything like that, whatever negativity you're playing into, whatever. Understand the systems of oppression is important. That way you can see like where you fall in that, right? Like, well, what am I doing to uphold this system of oppression? Like all of this stuff, but just day to day, like, what are you doing? What are your relationships like? What are your interactions like with women? What are your interactions like with children? What are your interactions like with other men? What are your interactions like with cishet men and men who identify as gay, trans people, like all that, like all of these are just layers, but you start small. I'm not saying you got to do all of it at one time. I definitely couldn't do it at one time, but just doing that type of stuff. And then as you branch out, it's like, oh, your son wants to explain consent. Go ahead, BPG son.
What is consent?
So if you want to hug someone, you got to ask if you want to hug them first.
Yep.
That's a consent in a nutshell.
Yeah, just go.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or if you're like trying to touch someone, or where they don't want to get touched or anything of the sort, you got to ask them first.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You ain't lying.
And he's 11. He's been knowing that since I don't even know how long. It is so unbelievably easy.
7.
It is so, since he was he just said 7, but I think it was before that. But it is so unbelievably easy to teach kids consent. And it's easier to teach kids consent because the purity of their minds, truthfully, is that, okay, I have to ask for a hug.
Yep.
I have to ask for a handshake. I have to ask, can I play with you? Is it okay if I come over here and
can I talk to you?
Can I talk to you? Is that okay? Like, it's very easy to teach little kids consent because unfortunately, once kids get to the point of being high school age, a lot of parents get in denial about whether or not their kids know about sexual touch or anything like that. So they have already dropped the ball with those kids because a lot of times their boys and some of the girls don't know that you can't just go up to people grabbing their behinds like in the wood. It's too many boys that think that that unconsensual touching is just a rite of passage. You can teach little kids consent. You just have to be dedicated to doing so.
Also, when I was in junior high school and high school and stuff, when we was in them locker rooms, the boys, we used to, hey man, I seen a nigga get choked out in the locker room and the homie just dropped him and he went face first and busted his whole teeth and he had to get braces. All his shit got busted. He had to get, I don't even know. I think he ended up getting veneers in eventually. His name was James. I'll never forget that shit. We was in the locker room. Like, you want to talk about violating? We were violating each other. Like, wedgies, grabbing. We used to grab each other's, like, literally, like, grab your and just squeeze them. And, like we could do smacking on the ass, like all type. We were just doing wild shit, little adolescent. You know what I'm saying? Adolescent boy, teenage boy. We did all types of wild shit to each other. Consent was not in our lexicon. We did not understand that. We was just it was not a thing. It was just not a thing. Kicking
And
each
it
other in
starts
the
at an
head.
early age. It starts at a very early age. The first time I had a boy, I don't remember the first time I had a boy or a man like grab me and grope me, but I know there was one time in particular. I was in the 4th grade, which is about what's the name, son age. That's 4th grade is about 8-9 years old. And this boy, we was on the playground. He ran up to me and grabbed my butt. Now I'm minding my business. I ain't said nothing to him. I remember his name. So, matter of fact, I'm gonna call him out. His name was Tori. I remember that so vividly. He came up to me and grabbed my butt. Now, me being me, because I've always been the same way since
Is your brother named Stacy?
No, I ain't had no brother. I ain't need no brother because I came up to him in class and whispered in his ear that I would be waiting outside of his bushes every single day, and I was never gonna tell him when I was gonna attack, but I was going to get him back for grabbing my butt. And the way that boy was so shook for the rest of the school year, because I would just leave him little notes for the rest of the month. Like, you know, I'm still coming for you, right? You know, I'm going to still get you, right? And I would just look at him and smile. And I would say, you know, I'm still going to get you, right? And he was so terrified. Every time he saw me, he would apologize. But that's how early it starts with boys, like not understanding, hey, you can't touch, you know, whoever you want to touch. You have to be able to understand consent, because you will find yourself in a situation where maybe you find some little psychotic, you know, 4th grade girl who will threaten you, you know, to no end because you grabbing booties. Like, don't do that.
I was afraid to kiss. I was afraid for a while of some things, but I didn't know. My thing with consent was I didn't understand that no means no, meaning just one no will suffice.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need, like, she said no, walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I would be like, no, okay, try again in 2 days, try again in 4 days, try again in a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that was my thing.
That's
interesting,
most
Bubba,
men,
because
you know.
Yeah.
That's interesting, Bubba, because most women back in the day used to always say, "You gotta keep fighting for me." So, you know, they would say stuff like that.
I never had a girl tell me that, sir. I promise
Really?
you. Never.
They'll literally call you weak. You ain't a man because you're not pushing for them.
Can we be clear, though, that when women say that they want a man that's willing to fight for them, they don't mean themselves. Like, they don't mean fight me for me. Like, that's not at all where...
Maybe put in more work.
Yeah, that's not what I'm not saying fight them. What I'm saying is, yeah, like you said, put in more work.
Yeah, maybe putting in more work doesn't mean just continually asking them, and that's what I was doing. It wasn't like I was like proving to them my worth. Like, I would just like, okay, she said no on Monday, and then Wednesday I'd be like, hey, what's up? No, for real though. And she'd be like, oh, and then it's a month later, we in the class. I'm like, yo, man, what's up? You been playing with me, man? What you been playing? You gonna do your boy like that? Oh, I see what it, you know, trying to guilt her or whatever.
Pressuring that lady.
Yeah,
That's like, what you was doing in class.
Hey, sometimes I ain't gonna even. Every now and again. Shit, I did it. I ain't gonna even. Or in real life. With the oh, come on, please, no, come on, just a tip. Oh, just let me lick it all. Let me eat it. Same shit. She said no, nigga, no. Let it go.
Okay.
And men have to understand that that's like the biggest revelation is realizing that that's coercion. Like, there is
coercion.
There is a difference. Like, I always, when I tell people about and I be trying not to share my stories because I'm not trying to make my husband look like he's perfect, because he be getting on my nerves too, like any other man. But what I will say is when you talk about the difference between somebody fighting for you and somebody fighting you, a man that's consistently like pushing you to be in a relationship with him, that's not what women mean. When my husband first started calling me, we were going to date, but he would consistently call my house and my dad would hang up and be like, nope, you can't talk to her. Now, I wanted to talk to him, but my dad said no. And he would just call back. He would politely call back and say, you know, Mr. Williams, can I please speak to your daughter, blah, blah, blah. And my dad would be like, nope, and hang up. And he'd be like, oh, I like that boy. He persistent. And then my husband would call back and he'd hang up on him again. that's the like there's a difference between pursuing somebody that likes you and you're going through different, like, okay, I'm proving to you that I genuinely want this relationship, because whatever obstacles we come into, I'm going to, fight those obstacles, but I'm not fighting you. Like, I'm not telling you, oh, get over yourself so we could be in a relationship. No, that's weird.
Yep. Hey, Dan, I put you on mute, brother. You can come up and get unmuted though, if you would like to. I would like to hear your. You said this wasn't the number one reason. Said it had nothing to do with misogyny. I would love to hear how it doesn't. Yeah. Those was wild days, and most of the men that I know, we were not like that. Was what we were just taught, like.
Yeah, it was like, it's like romanticized in like media, right? Like coercion. It's like this enticing thing, and violation was always looked at or always portrayed as like a really violent thing, which is why people don't realize that assault and anything under that umbrella does not have to be violent in the ways that we have been shown. Somebody jumping out the bush, grabbing you and violently, you know what I mean? Like, it happens with people, and you are dating, and, and I think that's where like people have just got it twisted, because coercion has been romanticized, which is why nobody knows what it looks like.
Yep. They think the coercion in the movies is like the boy that goes over the girl's house and throws the rocks at her window, and she's like, out of here. And then he's like, no. And then, or fucking, what was it? House Party, when they went to go pick up Sydney, and she, you know what I mean? And she wasn't trying to go, and you know what I mean? And it's like that. I'm not saying like that was smacks, but it was just like, just like, oh no. Like, all right, when she said no, you should just been like, all right, bet. Like, cool, right? No harm, no foul. But instead, it's like, oh, please, da 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 da. But and if he's doing that just to get her to a party, and you saw in the movie, like, that's what I'm saying. All of that shit all of that, man. Boys and men are so conditioned to coerce women into having sex with them. It's not even funny. Like,
it's wrong to expect that from.
You said it's wrong to expect that from women?
No, that's why it's wrong to expect that men know this stuff, or they should know this stuff.
No, it's not wrong. It's just it's wrong is the wrong word. It's definitely not wrong. You should know. You should educate yourself. It's wrong that they're taught that. It's not wrong that they don't know it though. I'm still blaming men for not knowing it.
And that's wild, because women know because we're the victims of it, which means we're victimized by men who should know. But regardless, that's a wild take that you would even say, again, another excuse and avoiding accountability of, well, that's why you shouldn't expect them to know. Like, are you serious? Do you hear yourself?
That is an actual.
That's like the 10th time.
I'm listening to myself talk. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm really speaking from a place of all the men that I've been interacting with, and I know there's a lot of the stuff that they be saying be very ridiculous. But I'm just looking at the fact that when I have conversations with some of these men, and I'm like, dude, you should know. You like 50 years old. You should be knowing this stuff. But not a lot of men have access, or even have the inkling to even find this information. Like, they don't have people like you, Public, BPG, E. Like, the stuff that you was talking about, BPG, as far as with your son, which is very impressive. I like that for you. He sounds very educated, very smart. Glad for that. And I teach my kids the same thing. I didn't know that's what you were saying regarding consent, but I teach my kids that because of the place that I come from me growing up, how I was handled and how I was misused, or whatever the case would be. And so because of that, I said, look, I'm gonna teach my kids the same thing. Don't let anybody touch you. Don't do this, don't do that, whatever the case may be. Or if get permission, because that's not your place to be doing this, whatever. I'll educate my kids on that, because that's what I would have wanted. And then that's how I teach them. I teach them according to how I would want to be treated. And so, but a lot of the stuff that y'all be saying, I understand what y'all saying, but a lot of people haven't come to this place in their life. They haven't come to this realization.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse. And what you said was
No,
basically you were saying
I'm
how
not
can
saying
you?
it's an excuse.
Well, but you did though. When you
But I'm saying,
say, okay, let me tell you why. When you say
okay,
this, when you say, basically, I'm paraphrasing if I'm not mistaken. You were like that. How can you get mad at the men because they don't know any better, right? Which to your whole point initially was ignorance. But that's a cop out. Ignorance is a cop out. Saying you don't know something, like imagine that in any other capacity, like at work, like, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do that. You can still get fired. They don't give a fuck that you. They go, oh, you didn't know? Okay, you didn't know you couldn't just eat whatever behind. Oh no, I didn't know I couldn't just. Well, okay, slap on the. No, nigga, you gonna get fired. They don't care. Right is right and wrong is wrong. You should have known. You should have thought about it. You should be more mindful, more demure, right? But not enough. Not enough mean. We act like these things are so hard to understand, but it's simply just because we don't try to understand them. Because once again, you know consent. If a man tried to take your booty, you would understand consent. I don't care if you was 15 or 50, you would know consent. You wouldn't need no lessons in consent. You know consent if you've ever been hit on by a gay man. Because most heterosexual men, when they get hit on by gay men, they, oh my God, like, right? Isn't that the reaction? So you think I'm a punk? You think I'm like all that weird shit, right? Not just take it as a compliment like it is. Like most cishet men have an adverse reaction to a man who identifies as gay hitting on them. Y'all understand consent? Then you understand cat. They ain't even cat calling, but that's just as bad as cat calling in man's mind. Just a man hitting on another man. In a man's mind, they react the way that a woman will react to a man fucking howling out the window to her, being disrespectful, making lewd comments to her, right? A man could just simply flirt with the man and be open about it. Oh, I think you're handsome. Oh, I think you're attractive, or whatever the case may be. And that man, how dare you? But then they don't understand how catcalling is fucking wild and disrespectful as fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we understand. We have the capacity to understand. We just don't care. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. For me,
yeah, I know we have the capacity.
Yeah,
It's just a fact. It's just the fact that everybody, and this is what I recognize in psychology, because I help my mom with her practice dealing with people on a regular basis, and she's actually training me right now too as well. But what I realized in doing this counseling sessions is that everybody is not at the place where they need to be in a healthy way. Like some of the stuff that they be saying be the most ridiculous stuff, and some of them they say a lot of ridiculous stuff, and they be like, and I try to educate them.
Hold on, wait, go back.
Into
What did you
I've
say
learned.
about the training? I missed the training part. What did you say?
So I'm learning. I'm training right now to be not be a psychologist, but more of an assistant to a psychologist. And so
Okay.
there's classes that I'm helping my mom assist in. And so
Okay.
some of the things, literature that I'm learning right now, it's pretty much basic knowledge. At least
Okay.
it's basic to me, but it's not basic to everybody else that I'm having interactions with on a regular basis
Okay.
with this class. If so, we won't be having any counseling sessions because everybody will be all the way there where they need to be.
But what did you say though?
But
I missed the training. What
but
was it?
what I'm saying, I'm dealing with people that are saying a lot of ridiculous stuff.
Okay.
And some of it's very abusive. Some of it's just a lot of different stuff that they're saying. And I'm like, what? You think like that? This is how you operate? Like it will seem abnormal to everybody else, but it's normal in their minds because of either because of their upbringing or because of their life experiences, whatever it is. And a lot of times, if they haven't gotten the proper help or the education or whatever, uh, in the allotment amount of time that they needed, but prior to me, uh, then they will not be at the place where they need to be at. And so I can't. If that's the reason why they're coming to me for assistance, because they don't have the knowledge of how to regulate themselves or whatever case it be. And some of the ones that are troubled, they're like, you know what, man, I appreciate you for your help, thank you, and they keep coming back and asking me more questions, asking me for more help. And so these are people that don't know, but they're eager to learn. Is that, am I making sense?
I don't know. Nah, I ain't gonna hold you.
I know I get misunderstood all the time. I know.
I ain't want to. I was just gonna let you. I was trying to catch it. I never got to it, man.
I'm just saying you only know what you know according to the place that you're at mentally. I may know business, but the next person may not know business because they haven't learned it. Or I'm gonna simplify
But
it
this
then.
isn't that though, right? Because this is about ethics at the end of the day.
Right, but
And
not everybody's taught ethics. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example.
yes, we are.
I'm gonna give you an example.
Everybody's taught ethics. It's a natural function in our society. It's a natural function. It's not even like
Let me ask
something
you
you
this.
necessarily have to. It's intuitive. Like, what do you mean? We're all taught ethics.
Do
Absolutely.
you respect your elders? Do you respect your elders?
Generally, I respect everybody generally, but do I feel like I gotta
If they're
respect?
respectful.
Yeah, if they respectful, yeah, I'll respect them. Fuck
Right.
them if they
Okay, if they're respectful, okay, that's fine.
fuck them and feed
Okay,
them fish if they disrespectful.
right. So I'm gonna give you an
You ever
example.
seen Push Mama off? You ever seen Push Mama from the train? That's the type of time I be on with
Hilarious.
these old motherfuckers. Throw mama from the train. Yeah.
I'm gonna give you an example. I was raised to respect my elders. Now, when I say raised to respect my elders, meaning that I don't say anything derogative, I don't say anything wrong, or I don't yell at them, I don't do all the all the little stuff that's out of line as a child to an adult.
How old are we talking?
What you mean? You talking about as far
When
as
you
me?
say elders, because I'm technically an elder now.
Yeah. I guess we would be considered elders at I guess mid-30s, whatever the case would be. 40.
Mid-30s. I'll yell at
That's what they
mid-30 niggas down in a heartbeat if I was.
That's what they call me. They
yell
said
a motherfucker. I yell a nigga in his mid-30s down like a dog in the street. I don't give a fuck about him. What you talking about, man?
But no, I had a 15-year-old say, "Hey, can you tell them you my daddy?" So that so that way I can get them I'm gonna explain the scenario here because y'all gonna probably like this is weird here. I actually I used to do Uber and I used to do deliveries and I used to pick up passengers, whatever.